Very, very, very good shit. And it's a great pair, like wine with fine cheese and dry cured meats. With the second video that we're gonna watch
I am
from
crashing out. What
me too, my friend, from Revolutionary Thought. Are you actually revolutionary or just performative? So today, I guess the topic of the stream is differentiating between what is to be done and motherfuckers that only talk about what is to be done, but then don't do jack shit. Okay? So let's get right into it. I got this recommended by Cuphead, and I think it's a fascinating subject. So let's do it.
is up with some leftists calling any discussions about racism or misogyny or homophobia or ableism or any of the other forms of bigotry liberal identity politics, or saying that bringing it up divides the working class? Why are self-proclaimed leftists falling for right-wing culture war bull? It has come to my attention.
Yeah, divides the working class, divides the when they only identify like American whites as the working class.
That many online leftists
Imagine talking about talking about specific inadequacies of the current system and its treatment of specific groups of people. Imagine calling that something that is divisive and not something that will bring those people into the movement because they will feel seen by said movement.
Don't seem to understand the entire point of their own ideology, or else they'd at least question some of these talking points. Like, some online leftists really seem to treat being a leftist as a method of self-validation.
Today we're distinguishing between the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. That's a good one.
Or a performance that makes them feel like the smartest, most correct, and specialist boy. And I say boy because this mostly applies to men, though women and non-binary people are definitely not immune. Rather than as a set of guiding principles for how you interact with people, yourself, the world at large, and how you strive to change the world based on your own skills, abilities, and material conditions. Like a real leftist should. Instead, they're basically this meme. People on the internet. Having decorative pillows makes you part of the bourgeoisie. People in real life. Hey man, how's it going?
Yeah.
I've met so many
people on the internet. Dude, a guy came up to Hassan and he said the meme, bro. It's crazy, dude. People in real life. Hey, want to grab a beer?
like this, and it's actually alarming just how many of them there are on the internet, and like they could all be bots, but what if they're not? What if these are real people with bad ideas? I don't know which one's worse, honestly. Like, yikes, I really thought being a leftist was about using your noggin a little bit and experiencing empathy for other people, but I guess in many cases it's more about the illusion of using your noggin. Why would you pretend to use your noggin instead of just using it? Come on. Leftist ideology is about liberation for all oppressed people worldwide, and about building a better world so that everyone can thrive, but a lot of self-proclaimed leftists on the internet are clearly not about that. They care more about being right than about solidarity, and dismiss actual concerns that marginalized people have as simple liberal identity politics, which makes this ideology seem completely unviable or irrelevant to marginalized people, the people who would benefit the most from a socialist system and who you definitely want on your side. Talking about queer rights or misogyny or racism or whatever is not liberal identity politics at all. And to claim that it is basically another form of liberal identity politics.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to. Don't worry. And don't worry, this is not me punching left. These people that I'm talking about are not to the left of me. I've seen these types of people referred to as brocialists, fake leftists, class reductionists, and at their core, they are social chauvinists. And in the spirit of Marxist tradition, I can't just let these self-proclaimed leftists and Marxists and socialists and whatever they consider themselves to be continue being wrong and saying goofy, unsubstantiated things without at least pushing back somewhat. And that's what this video will be about, dunking on and debunking a few common social chauvinist talking points like talking about bigotry is liberal identity politics, and focusing on marginalized groups divides the working class, and discussing why this mindset is not only annoying, but actively counter-revolutionary and alienating to the very people you want on your side.
Yeah. Plus it's un-Marxian, plus it's so divisive that it proves our point, you know?
And yeah, that's right. All the social chauvinists are now Marxists. Don't laugh. Before we jump into all that, I wanted to talk about today's sponsor, Aura. Have you
The
ever Googled
little
yourself and
wreckers,
been
yeah.
like, wow, there's way too much of my information on the internet? It's kind of terrifying looking yourself up and seeing that your home address, phone number, and other private information is just there online for literally anyone to look up. Not only are data brokers earning billions from sharing that info without your consent, but them doing so also leaves you much more vulnerable to identity theft because sometimes those extra secret security questions, like what street did you grow up on, are literally something anyone can look up online. Yikes! Plus, those sites make removing your info intentionally difficult and sometimes require you to give even more of your personal information to do so. Luckily, Aura takes care of the hard part by automatically removing your personal information from these data broker websites and keeping it off. I know, there's a lot of services that do that.
Racism, sexism, enablism predated capitalism, and we can't let them outlive it 100%. And also, we have had socialist experiments in the past in which a worker state, as we define it, was established, but worked towards internationalism, worked towards battling homophobia, worked towards combining the very materialist, true, and correct analysis that almost all feminists have, together with the worker state, ended up being a failure. Ended up being a failure not because those two are incompatible, quite to the contrary, because a lot of social chauvinists in the worker state did not want to engage in that type of conversation. Hell, they were so reactionary that in certain cases, inside of socialist states, entire populations of people were generalized as either barbaric or more prone, ironically, to reactionary sentiment, and were very often killed en masse, deported, forcefully migrated from one place to another, etc., etc. So, unless we work towards our goals with radical intersectionality, you can get to a point where there are worker states that are hella reactionary on many issues except class, right? Which then leads to the contradictions of said socialist society to pile up and leads to its eventual downfall, because there are now hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that hate the system, not because it is socialist, but because it rejects intersectionality and therefore rejects their concerns and therefore positions itself as their enemy instead of their friend.
But Aura has way more features for basically the same price, all in one app, including a secure VPN, an antivirus, a password manager, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, and more. Aura also includes $5 million in identity theft insurance protection in case the worst happens. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches and brokers, and you shouldn't either. You can try Aura for free for 14 days at aura.com/revolutionary. In those 2 weeks, Aura will get to work scrubbing your personal info from these data broker sites. Thank you, Aura, for sponsoring this video. Now back to the video. I've seen far too many self-proclaimed leftists say that talking about a particular marginalized group is liberal identity politics, showing that they don't actually know what liberal identity politics means. Liberal identity politics does not mean acknowledging that people experience oppression on the basis of class, as well as other things that are deeply tied to class, like race and gender. In fact, the acknowledgement of those things is foundational to Marxist theory because race, gender, class, ability, all the things are actually deeply intertwined. We will talk about what liberal identity politics is in a little bit, but first I need to explain why talking about the marginalized experience is not liberal identity politics and is actually super Marxist. Okay.
Identity politics without class liberalism. Class analysis without counting for identity, social chauvinism, okay? Class reductionism, whatever you want to call it. Do you understand? Okay? You cannot engage in dialectical materialism without viewing the undeniable fact that the conditions for certain people are different to the conditions, material conditions, systemic conditions that other people experience under the same systemic umbrella. Okay? You either are not capable of doing proper Marxian analysis, or you're low-key like just a bigot, and you don't wanna concern yourself with the rights of those pesky whatever, insert a slur over there. Okay?
Like feminism. The entire point of feminism is to liberate women, right? Oh, but that's liberal identity politics. Shut up! Shut up! My boy, Friedrich Engels, one of the originators of Marxism, wrote an entire text called The Origin of the Family, Private Property, and the State, in which he discusses in depth how the first form of oppression was that of the woman by the man, essentially turning the man into the bourgeoisie and the woman into the proletariat of the household.
The modern individual family is founded on the open or concealed domestic slavery of the wife, and modern society is a mass composed of these individual families as its molecules. In the great majority of cases today, at least in the possessing classes, the husband is obliged to earn a living and support his family, and that in itself gives him a position of supremacy without any need for special legal titles and privileges. Within the family, he is the bourgeois, and the wife represents the proletariat.
Marxists acknowledge that the patriarchy ensures that women continue performing unpaid domestic labor to reproduce the workforce every single day so that capitalism can keep functioning. And then transphobia and homophobia further enforce these rigid gender norms and the nuclear family. Engels wrote that to liberate women, capitalism must end and be replaced with a socialist system where people are prioritized over profits, so that women's unpaid labor can be socialized and women can be introduced into public life, thus
Exactly, beautifully put. And also, the only liberation that capitalism offered women when it comes to the contradiction of the bourgeoisie at home in the form of the husband for which you do labor was the bourgeoisie outside of the home, was an actual employer, was an actual boss, who often then, very often, required even more labor than your sexist husband back home did. There you go. An incredible example of, quote-unquote, concentrating on identity without class, leading to just a new contradiction, versus intersectionality, which views both the contradiction of patriarchal norms and capitalist class society. Right?
ultimately leading to the abolition of the...
Without both, you literally, like you either end up, I don't know, having an enlightened proletariat of men that has been saved from the clutches of the contradiction of the exploitation of labor as they continue to exploit labor at home. What the helly? Or if you're just doing, liberal identity politics, you just exchange the husband at home with the fucking manager at work. Both reproduce the same contradiction. It's idiotic. You had a vid exactly about this. Yes, about family from a million years ago. Yeah. Thank you for the biddies, elderly lady. Thank you very kindly.
Nuclear family unit as the basic economic unit of society. Women's liberation is a major part of Marxist theory and therefore a major goal of Marxist praxis. This is why famous Marxist political figures have said things like, women hold up half the sky, and no nation can be free when half its citizens are enslaved.
Greetings, Mr. Slavic man. Tomorrow there will be student strikes against mandatory conscription in Germany. Could you shout at your German followers to attend these before the German Empire starts to march towards unspecified Balkan country? That's funny. And yes, absolutely, you should fight mandatory conscription in the, I would argue everywhere, but especially in a country that's very openly talking about but opening the floodgates of returning to past glory, the way Germany always appears to want to return to. So, yeah, go and do that yesterday.
By the kitchen. It's also why every single nation with a Marxist ruling party immediately improved women's position in society. Watch my video about how socialism helps women to see 3 examples of exactly that. And it's also why in socialist Cuba, women were the ones to start a revolution within the revolution. It was Cuban women who completely changed the culture of the nation from one where machismo was normalized and femininity was viewed as weak to a culture striving for real equality by fighting for everyone, including women and LGBTQ+ people, to be equally involved in the construction of society and in the revolution. Because that's literally what socialism is about. It's not liberal identity politics to acknowledge that, and anyone who says that it is simply revealing that they don't actually know what liberal identity politics is. Racism is also not a fringe niche issue that leftists shouldn't care about, or just liberal identity politics. It's actually a class issue. Racism was created by white people to justify slavery and colonialism, 2 foundational pillars of capitalist primitive accumulation. It also creates a stratified labor force and effectively lowers wages for all workers, and is still being used as justification for
Also in the chatter also said it, dude, if we unironically do the oppression Olympics, if we unironically do it, let's do it, but unironically, we're not making fun of it. And if you were to list out categories of people, both class and ethnicity, race, gender, sexual identity, etc., and if you were to list them out, the further down you go towards the most disenfranchised and systemically fucked over people, the higher the revolutionary potential that person exhibits. This is basic socialism 101. If you don't know that, and you're asking why, well, the more fucked over you are by a particular system, the higher the chances that you will want to do everything in your power to change that system. And the cushier you are, the less you want to change that system. That's why the labor aristocracy, to a certain extent, the professional managerial class, as it's called, I don't agree with it, but let's call it here like that. The capitalists themselves, a lot of the petit bourgeois, they don't want a revolution because they think they're pretty cushy in this current system. They're okay with it. Even if they understand its contradictions, they're okay with it. The more fucked over a person is, the higher the chance of them being easier to radicalize because they unironically have less to lose. Okay? And for a lot of them, it's literally have nothing to lose but their chains. I did the sentence. Oh, that's so funny. It's very basic. So if somebody's coming to you and throwing crazy fucking arguments that we shouldn't be talking about social issues or something, because it's not pragmatic for the cause, what the fuck do you know about pragmatic? How do you mean like an inexhaustible pool of people that will do everything in their power to sabotage the system the way it is now because they're incredibly fucked over and they have nothing to lose? Dissuading those people from joining the cause is pragmatic? Are you fucking stupid? So stupid. Lumpens have the most revolutionary potential. In certain countries, they do. Also, the contradiction and bullshit of capitalism is much more visible the more marginalized you are. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's why I did the whole like oppression Olympics or whatever.
colonialism and imperialism today. And it's also a big part of why we don't have universal health care in the United States. Separating it from class makes no sense. Marx even wrote in a letter that labor with a white skin cannot emancipate itself where labor with a black skin is branded, clearly acknowledging that when the working class is divided by the capitalist ruling class, it is impossible for the entire working class to liberate itself. No one is free until everyone is free. You can't just free white laborers, you have to free all the laborers, and the people who can't labor for whatever reason, obviously. Marx also acknowledged the importance of the abolitionist movement in the United States.
In my opinion, the biggest things that are happening in the world today are, on the one hand, the movement of the slaves in America, started by the death of John Brown, and on the other, the movement in the serfs in Russia.
Engels and Marx also wrote about how capitalism disables workers and how this is a feature and not a bug of this mode of production. Engels coined the term social murder to describe an unnatural death or disablement via the
Chilovina, you're so funny. Circa 2025, the 4th of December, 2111. Chatter walks into chat and says, "We actually need Karens for the revolution. Karens are the backbone of society and the biggest enforcers of social rules. More so than even the police. We need to get more commie Karens." Red Karens, Red Karens, Red Karens. They called her the Red Karen. You mean Red Baron? No. Red Karen.
Of one's oppression in his text, The Condition of the Working Class in England, in which he identified the impact of
Sir, you cannot park your car here because we need to move a tank through here because it's going to shoot at the army base over there, sir. So can you please move your car, okay?
capital on the social determinants of health. Karl Marx stated in Capital
Karen Jihad 2025. She will talk to the manager of capitalism and liberate us all, okay? She will write down the name of the manager of capitalism. On Karen's Chilovina. Globalized Karenifada. Getting Karens to bully retail managers into letting cashiers have chairs could be a useful starting point. That's very smart, actually.
Volume 1.
Health officers, the industrial inquiry commissioners, the factory inspectors all repeat over and over again that it is both necessary for factory workers to have these 500 cubic feet of space per person and impossible to impose this rule on capital. They are, in reality, declaring that consumption and the other pulmonary diseases of the workers are conditions necessary to the existence of capital.
These issues of identity are deeply intertwined with class and completely inseparable from it. So basically saying that talking about racism or misogyny or homophobia or transphobia or ableism or whatever is liberal identity politics is actually the real liberal identity politics. Or its mirror image, the opposite side of the same coin. When I say liberal identity politics, I mean an overemphasis on identity that completely ignores class and frames liberation as something that can be attained just by putting people with marginalized identities into more positions of power while keeping the current systems of oppression intact. It is the reduction of systemic oppression to a matter of identity and representation and ignores the economic system that generates that oppression. Liberal identity politics believes that liberating marginalized...
Yo, do we have the creator in chat? What's up, Revolutionary Thought? Hi, Yugo. Thanks for watching my video. Thanks for making it. All your stuff looks very, very good. Welcome to the community as well. Somebody gift a sub to Revolutionary Thought right now. I doubt somebody is so smart as to LARP the creator we're watching, so they come in because they think that Yugo is gonna wiggle his finger and say, "Give the creator a subscription." Many burger for you. Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much, and thank you, Barry, for gifting Revolutionary a sub. Properly welcome to the community. Hell, I'll make you feel very, very welcome since I'm stealing your content, okay? Since I'm stealing your content right here. I'm going to give you VIP, even this part of the video that we watched. There you go. Now you're VIP and you have a subscription. And they say that Yugopnik chat is not welcoming.
People can be done by simply reforming capitalism and by changing the faces of power rather than the structures of power. That is because liberalism aims to maintain the capitalist status quo and uses liberal identity politics to get us to believe that the status quo can be reformed by breaking the glass ceiling and getting a black president or a woman president or whatever. As a Marxist or a leftist or whatever you are, you should know that that's obviously not how anything works. Not because identity isn't important, but because class is deeply intertwined with all these issues, and because in a bourgeois liberal democracy or a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie, same thing, society works for the bourgeoisie and upholds capital. Doesn't matter who's in charge, the system upholds capital regardless. Saying that racism and white supremacy is a problem is not liberal identity politics. Saying that if we just had more women in positions of power, that would solve everything is liberal identity politics.
Exactly. Yeah.
Saying that homophobia is a problem is not liberal identity politics. Saying that we need more gay and bisexual war criminals, politicians, is liberal identity politics. Again, liberalism is about changing who has the power within the existing system while keeping the system complete.
As I said earlier, identity politics without class is liberalism. Class analysis without also analyzing the particular relationship between identity and your material conditions and oppression is class reductionism. Both fucking suck. Be normal, don't suck.
Intact. Leftism is about changing the distribution of political power and equalizing it by changing the relations of production.
Chat, stop spamming our guest. Keep giving compliments, as you should, but don't expect responses.
And dismantling the class system that requires racism, patriarchy, homophobia, ableism, etc. to function. And that means changing the relations of production from private ownership of the means of production to collective ownership of the means of production, so everyone runs society collectively instead of being beholden to the whims of a few rich guys. Which also obviously means fighting to stop the continued exploitation of the global south and having international solidarity with workers and oppressed people worldwide. It means fighting for a free Palestine, Congo, Sudan, opposing US intervention in foreign countries, struggling for peace worldwide. Because as leftists, we side with oppressed people worldwide. Which also means siding with the oppressed people fighting for their rights in your own country. But when you say that only class matters...
Of course, and the joke that I said earlier about how the more disenfranchised you are, the less you have to lose, therefore the higher revolutionary potential of you as an individual you present, right? And therefore you can potentially be more useful or easier to introduce to the cause than somebody who has a lot more privilege than you. Well, if you apply that to the international field, if we want to call it, if you apply that to geopolitics, then it's exactly countries that are seeing the craziest amount of turmoil that also sometimes have the greatest revolutionary potential. Not always. This is a complicated issue, but often. So ignoring them or avoiding them and only talking about and concentrating on the potential socialist revolution inside of your own country, without endorsing, supporting, and doing whatever you can for revolutionary causes abroad, is also, to an extent, reductionist. I mean, not to an extent, it's reductionist. You think that only the things you experience are the only things that can be experienced. Therefore, only here can the revolution happen. Oh. So yes, very, very good point. And I just, it's always a matter of who's going through more shit, and the guy that's going through more shit has less to lose, therefore has a lot more potential of being even sometimes in a more leading role in revolutionary movements, because they are unironically, and I say this as a positive thing, more radical. Can you believe I've gotten some comments calling me a reformist Democrat who never talks about imperialism on this video? What the fuck? Please ignore these people. You'll get used to it. It's the best solution is to ignore. And also, low-key, don't read your comments, which is hilarious because I'm almost fully only on Twitch, and half of this game is reading comments by chatters. But here it's different because we have chill-based people in here, unlike YouTube comment sections, which I can imagine get absolutely insane. Thank you, Heretical. Thank you very much for the 11-month streak, baby. Yeah. Be like Heretical. I need to remind you, since we hit the 3rd hour mark, there is still a chance for us to gamba. Chat, we are it is 23 subs away from gamba. Okay? Revolutionary Thought is here to see just how unhinged our community is, okay? So let's hit that, and afterwards let's gamba. And as I said, the last 15 subs off the period before gamba and gamba are going to be counted towards gamba. So Let's have some fun. And let's triple your subscriptions because it's hilarious.
And everything else is just liberal.
Is it a game? No, chatters, explain. I've explained it too many times how it works.
Identity politics, you are the one that is declaring that marginalized people...
What, a Zionist showed up? Just fucking ban, please? The fuck?
somehow exist outside of class and attempting to surgically remove that marginalized group from
Thank you, Kadao.
the working class while treating their struggles as a concern that is separate from their class rather than something that they experience because of their class. You are the one saying that somehow marginalized people are their own separate entity.
I agree, lesbian hot sauce, and you can meet Revolutionary Thought in chat.
Completely devoid of class, and that their needs and goals are at odds with the needs and goals of the working class. So when you do that, you are effectively doing liberal identity politics by treating class and identity as separate and competing categories, which is what who does? Liberals, just in the other direction by ignoring class and focusing only on identity.
Welcome to the community, elderly lady. Thank you very much.
Liberal says only identity matters and ignores class distinctions. The social chauvinist brocialist says only class matters and ignores how identity shapes one's class experience. Both are wrong. A true Marxist dialectical materialist analysis understands that class and identity are fused, intertwined.
Yep.
They're like this. If you completely ignore identity, that doesn't make you more Marxist, it makes you less Marxist, because you're quite literally ignoring the specific material reality and the material ways in which capitalism grinds down members of the working class because of their identity. Women having to do the majority of the unpaid domestic labor in their household is a class issue. Migrant workers working for poverty wages and risking violent deportation to earn some money for their families back home is a class issue. Disabled people being intentionally kept in poverty despite the fact that it's actually really expensive to be disabled is a class issue. LGBTQ plus people living in poverty is a class issue. Trans people not being able to access life-saving healthcare is a class issue. If you don't get that, I don't know what to tell you, but you're not a leftist and you don't actually understand what you're fighting for. And you're certainly not a Marxist and probably haven't even read the foundational texts. Again, by writing off issues pertaining to a marginalized identity as simple liberal identity politics, especially when people of that identity are overwhelmingly working class and impoverished on purpose by the powers that be, you are literally doing liberal identity politics and splitting that marginalized identity off from the working class.
Exactly.
And declaring that their identity is separate from and has nothing to do with their class, effectively claiming
people that do class reductionism either are too caught up in their privilege, okay, so they're from like a majority group or whatever, and they just low-key don't care, or the only people that they interact with on a daily basis are exclusively people from their quote-unquote caste, which is another issue of privilege, because they've never talked to anyone who might have issues that they're not having, and therefore they cannot relate to any of those experiences, and therefore think that talking about it is divisive, because who would it be divisive towards? Their same equally privileged ass acquaintances, friends, family members, etc., etc. It's literally reactionary. Like it's just it's stupid. It's stupid.
that those marginalized people are a separate thing that we leftists shouldn't worry about because their identity makes them exist outside of class.
Or the other argument that once we establish a worker state, all those problems will automatically go away. No, they won't. And in plenty of socialist experiments of the past, as I said earlier, they didn't go away. Okay, a worker state allows for the potential of those, let's say, systems of bigotry to be terminated. Without the worker state, it's impossible to be fully terminated because it gets co-opted by capitalism, and then it just becomes another form of the same type of discrimination. But that doesn't mean that in a worker state that those contradictions will be terminated. So, to repeat, you need a worker state in order to destroy those contradictions. But the fact that you've established the worker state does not mean you've destroyed those contradictions.
Somehow, which does nothing but put identity at odds with being working class, which makes no sense because Gay people are the working class. Trans people are the working class. Disabled people are the working class. Black people are the like, come on. By saying that, you are the one putting their identity at odds with being working class, which again,
So secondary and primary contradictions, exactly.
makes no sense because they are the working class. Their goals are working class goals. Plus, if you're going to build a mass working class movement, don't you want the working class on your side? That's not gonna happen when you strip a bunch of working class people of their class because they belong to a different identity group than you and experience oppression based on class, as well as some other thing that capitalists decided is worth scapegoating so that people don't blame capitalism for their problems, but instead blame trans people or disabled people or immigrants or what have you. Like, it just baffles me that a self-proclaimed leftist or communist or socialist would literally buy into this weird right-wing culture war bullshit when it's so obviously nonsensical and wrong. Like, damn, mother. And just to reiterate one last time, class is not separate from one's other identities. One's other identities are not separate from class. It's all connected, bro. That's literally dialectical materialism.
Whoa, we want letter. Whoa.
Literally means that everything is connected to everything else. As my favorite Georgian
Why is this
philosopher
liberal
calls
making
dialectical
sense?
historical
God damn it.
materialism, any
Shut,
phenomenon
are we liberals? God damn it. Turns out we're all liberals. Dialectical materialism is liberalism, right? I thought that's what they taught me in school. Chat, FML, when I care about black person, I'm liberal now. Oh no! I've been liberalized. Oh! FML chat, when I'm a socialist and I think women are humans. Oh no! I'm a liberal now. Libbed up. Not bricked up. Libbed up. We're living it. Woo. God damn it. I'm gonna live. Oh my God. I am fighting my urge to say a slur. Oh no, I'm a liberal. God damn it, I'm not saying a slur. I'm so fucking liberal right now. God damn it. Number one liberal over here. I'm gonna live. Oh God.
Can be understood and explained if considered in its inseparable connection with surrounding phenomena, as one conditioned by
Say a slur right now or you're a lib. If you don't say a slur right now, you're a fucking liberal.
surrounding phenomena.
But sir, I'm a socialist. Whatever, dude. Not wanting to be bigoted, that is what makes you a liberal.
You cannot break a person up into their component parts and split their identity from their class. The way one experiences class oppression is determined largely by one's identity. If you think that the oppression that people face as a result of their class combined with their identity is meaningless and that the only oppression that matters is the one that people face as a result of their class minus identity, you are the one that is doing liberal identity politics and saying that class is a separate thing from identity that is at odds with identity. It is not. It can't.
Yeah, also you're like standardizing a type of human as the standard working class human, and then everybody else is the non-standard weird working class human, right? Whatever the majority ethnicity and other categories, whatever present in a state is, that's the real working masses. Everybody else is like a DLC working masses. What's this, Cuphead? Very good video. FML chat, when I'm a socialist and I think women are humans. Oh no, I'm a liberal now. Libbed up. Not bricked up. Libbed up. We're living it. Woo. God damn it. I'm gonna live. Oh my God. I am fighting my urge to say a slur. Oh no, I'm a liberal. What? Barry, why the fuck did you send me this? Was that? I do not speak the language of the musicians. What is this musician language? I do not understand the language of the musicians. It's a slur? What the fuck? Okay. Oh, okay, that's hilarious.
Possibly be. You can't separate those
Okay, I got the joke now. That was I should ban you right now.
things like that. The needs of the working class are not at odds with or in contradiction to the needs of marginalized people. They're the same thing. When you make society safer and better for the most marginalized, you make it safer and better for everyone. Leftist ideology is meant to be liberatory for all people, not just some abstract working class that somehow excludes any identity outside of the default, I guess, identity of cishet working class white man who was only oppressed on the basis of being working class. And being that default identity does not mean that you experience class oppression in its purest form and that everyone else's experiences are a fringe issue. It's actually just all class contradictions manifesting in different ways depending on one's identity. Having a marginalized identity does not negate one's class background in any way. The CEO of one of the companies I used to work at was a disabled immigrant, which, same bro, but like, that's not enough to forge a bond of unbreakable solidarity between us, especially because his family fled Hungary in the 1940s to escape the Soviets, which, like, what was your family doing in the 1940s? And this guy had like a nurse come to his house every day. He literally owned like at least 2 companies and had one of the biggest houses in the area. Actually, the biggest house in the city he lived in. So, like, that's not most disabled people's experience. Do you think trans people who are bourgeois are struggling to access hormones? Do you think Pete Buttigieg is going to get a hate crime for being a homosexual? No.
But the
Bro.
GG.
Working class people with those backgrounds are at risk of government violence constantly because they are working class, and the government uses their identity to enact that violence against them. Come on, like, obviously identity does not magically determine one's class background. However, given that the working class is the larger of the 2 classes, the majority of people in any given identity group will probably be working class because that's how math works.
I mean, real talk. This weekend in the opening conference for the New Socialist Party in the UK, we had legit had to have this argument with old stinky man Marxists who were arguing trans rights is bourgeois. I was screaming by the end. They are so trapped in vibes and don't understand prejudice is structural. 100 million percent, 1 million percent, and also they view any quote unquote more modern analysis of most social issues as just like, oh, this weird liberal shit coming to us from the States. It's they're ironically doing like heavy duty identity politics because they're like, ooh, everything that is new is from these goddamn children, and that means that it is developed by capitalism as another means to divide the working class. I don't see color, bro. Ooh, Turf Island strikes again. Yeah. Don't worry, those guys are just gonna die off.
Talking about trans issues divides the working class. This is dividing the working class. The working class is already divided. The ruling class already did that and continues to do that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be the ones actively trying to suppress trans people, push them out of sports, push them out of public life in general, remove their access to necessary medical care, all of which increases the suicide rate for this already vulnerable group and is a form of social murder. Engels. This is not the book. That's Origin of Family. The division of the working class has already happened, and trans people certainly weren't the ones to do it. Do you know who divides the working class? Is it marginalized, oppressed people who just want to live their lives, or the ruling bourgeois class who benefits from scapegoating those same people so people outside of that marginalized group will blame the marginalized group for the failings of capitalism instead of blaming capitalism and fighting to implement a new system? Are trans people or immigrants or whoever dividing the working class? Or is it the bourgeoisie who would benefit from a divided working class that are doing that? Also, like, why would marginalized working class people who are suffering the most under capitalism and who would benefit the most from the rest of the working class upholding and supporting their struggles, why would they divide the working class? Why? Answer me.
Absolutely, Jesus. Yeah. Also, the complete insanity of because low key you are agreeing that there is oppression going on when, for example, you say talking about trans issues is going to divide the workers' movement, and therefore we shouldn't touch it. But the fact that you're saying that trans issues are an issue means you, to some extent, agree with the fact that trans people are suffering, and yet you're willing to dehumanize them to such an extent that you're willing to throw them under a bus because, from your perspective, it's a little bit taboo and it might divide the left to this or that extent. what I'm trying to say is these people, to an extent, know that it's a real struggle, but they very actively choose to ignore it, and they choose to ignore it for such a tiny, tiny, petty potential issue that they see when it comes to building a movement, which shows just how much either self-absorbed they are or how much they dehumanize a particular category of people. Sometimes subconsciously, like, oh sure, your suffering is intense, I see it, but you have to wait your turn. It's our suffering's turn right now, which is not only un-Marxist, it's low-key like you're kind of a cunt. It's so dumb. If you were on a picket line, would you exclude your trans co-workers because optics? Absolutely not. Everyone is out there together. Of course.
Can't. Because that's a goofy non-argument. This is also what happens when you don't read theory, or if you only read the foundational texts but nothing beyond that. Like, of course, the foundational texts are important for understanding the philosophy of Marxism, and you should absolutely read them, but you need to understand the material conditions of the working class where you are now. And you can't do that when you are writing off sections of the working class and claiming that discussing their issues that are particular to them, not only because of their identity group, but because they are also working class like you, and thus have no power to enact change on their own behalf in this dictatorship of the bourgeoisie without building collective power just like you, is not important. Also, if you consider yourself a leftist or a Marxist or whatever, and you live in the United States and your principles, your praxis, everything about your ideology is not rooted in the Black radical tradition and inspired by the Black Panther Party, then you don't really know anything about Marxism. Much like how Lenin taught us that the working class cannot just seize a bourgeois state, but has to smash the state and construct a brand new proletarian state, which is what he did with the Soviet Union, and added to the Marxist canon by literally showing us how seizing and maintaining state power is done via a highly educated and dedicated vanguard party adhering to the principle of democratic centralism. The Black Panther Party also added to the Marxist canon and showed us how Marxism can be applied to the material conditions of the United States. Of course, that was decades ago. We have new material conditions now, but their work is still an important facet of Marxist history. And if you live in the US and consider yourself a leftist, you need to know about them. The Black Panther Party showed the value of international solidarity with oppressed people worldwide, the importance of organizing the most marginalized communities who are suffering the most under capitalism, and the need to build dual power and essentially create parallel government programs, which they termed survival programs, to make up for the failures of the government itself and show what can actually be done to meet people's needs. They literally addressed and sought to improve material conditions while building revolutionary consciousness and educating their communities. Plus, a very important aspect they added to the Marxist canon is the need to organize the lumpen proletariat rather than writing them off as automatically real.
Yeah, because they understood that in the conditions of the African American community, the revolutionary potential for the most disenfranchised of the already disenfranchised African American community lies in the lumpen proletariat. And they unironically did slightly what the Narodniks used to do. Go and agitate amongst them, and very often turn them into some of their most active members.
Reactionary like Marx incorrectly did. This would be like your unhoused people or workers or anyone who works in the informal economy like dealers. And the young lords who were inspired by the Black Panthers and who also did incredible things literally started off as a gang. The Black Panthers also recognized that to build a mass working class movement, yes, start in your own community, absolutely, but extend that same solidarity to other people fighting for what is basically the same thing. The Black Panthers started off organizing Black people who they considered to essentially be colonized people within the belly of the beast, a colony within the US empire itself. But they also built solidarity with other oppressed people both at home and abroad because they understood that they were all fighting for the exact same thing: the liberation of all oppressed people worldwide from the shackles of Western imperialist hegemony. Huey P. Newton, one of the founders of the Black Panther Party, even gave an entire speech in response to the homophobia and misogyny of some of the Black Panther Party membership, showing that he understood the interconnected nature of oppression and the fact that women, gay people, and black people are all oppressed by the same systems.
Exactly. And my dude, like, you're the vanguard. Like, you are supposed to set a precedent. You are supposed to talk about the most controversial topics that nobody else wants to talk about in the party or in the movement or the organization, etc., etc. Because if not you, who will? What the fuck? That's literally your fucking... The point of a leader is exactly that, my dude. I will give you the link, which now is not appearing. What the actual hell? Wait, where is it? Of this fantastic video, because I have to go record the program, and I will see you all tomorrow. It is a brilliant video, and I want you to watch it by yourselves so that the video actually gets views. And I want you all to click on the like button, okay, right now. Like button. Brilliant video, brilliant creator. Welcome to our community. That's weird for me to say. Revolutionary thought. Okay. Everybody go like, comment, watch it, enjoy it. Lots to learn from it. I just got like 7 DMs from JT that I need to boot, even though it was supposed to be in 20 minutes, but it is what it is. Okay, now I'm going to raid another chatter, Doof. Thank you, Revolutionary Thought, for hanging out with us. I'm going to raid Doof that is streaming right now. That's your fellow chatter. So everybody give them like 7 million follows, 7 trillion follows. Thank you to everybody that subscribed. Thank you to everybody that followed. If you're here and you haven't followed, it's literally a click of a button. I would appreciate you very much. Thank you to everybody who subscribed. Thank you to my lovely, lovely mods. Thank you to Revolutionary Thought one more time. And I will be seeing you tomorrow or on Sunday. And next time, motherfuckers, I want a gamba, okay? Okay, I'm going insane. I need to gamba. I need to gamba on my stream. Can't believe we didn't reach the target. Look. Patetico, mucaco, okay? It's not even about the money anymore. It's about the gamba experience. So have a great day. Go watch the video, and I appreciate you all. Bye-bye.